Okay. So over the weekend, I had a chance with some of my companions to watch Rion Johnson. I'm gonna stop with the Benoit Blanc impression. I watched Wake Up Dead Man with some of the boys, and I'm gonna try to go non-spoilery for as long as I can, with maybe like a little bit of some minor spoilers in there, but nothing too major, and then just like a here's the spoilery section. I loved this movie. I really enjoyed the first two Knives Out movie, and I enjoyed this more or less about as much. Mystery is not a genre that I like really consume, but I'm always down for one. Like if I'm like hanging out with my dad and he's watching Poirot, I'm like, yeah, I'll definitely watch an episode or two. It's honestly one of the reasons I didn't really get into Sherlock, was I felt like when I was watching the show, this is less about solving a mystery and more about like, here's a superhero, like just kind of going for it. And it just didn't work for me in that way. But it is a genre that even if I don't consume often, it's one I have a real soft spot for, especially after reading Umineko a couple years ago. So, when I see a closed room murder, again, it's not like super spoiler. I'm not going to say right, like in this section who the victim is, because it does take a while before someone actually dies. And I feel like, especially after Glass Onion, where the victim was not the person I expected, I feel like I should not directly say who the victim is. But it is a closed room murder. I'm like, okay, after all of Umineko, I'm excited for this. I think the performances are really good. I think they can be like really fun and entertaining or really interesting and compelling. For me, what was really compelling about this movie, aside from just like whodunit, I like mysteries, is the depiction of Christianity. Because it's a movie that's about like a small parish, and like here's the pastor, here's the other pastor, and here's like the like tight-knit members of this congregation. Now someone has died. Who did it? Why? And you see these two different depictions of Christianity with your two main priests, with Monsignor Wicks and Father Judd. And Wicks is this very fire, brimstone, judgment. Like a big part of his backstory, which again, this is something that's not super spoilery, you get it relatively early on in the film, is that he was born out of wedlock, and his grandfather heavily shamed his mother for that, to the point where his mother was referred to as the harlot whore. And that is exclusively how Wicks refers to his mother. And they talk about how like some of his preaching is like what he likes to do is like when someone new comes into the church, he will essentially preach against them and their lifestyle, whatever it is, as hard as he can until they leave. Because there's this sense of satisfaction in him and his droogs. And like, essentially it's like, I can bear what he's preaching, but this other person couldn't, which makes me feel better and stronger about my faith and more tight-knit in this group. And for me, I'm just like, I just find that disgusting, you know? But there is this scene where Wicks is talking to Judd, where he's like, the reason I do this is I believe that we live in a world that is so far gone from what we are supposed to value, what we're supposed to believe in. And I think the only way we can, bring it back to that is by being harder, by being tougher, by being warriors for Christ. It's not just about love and like being soft, because when you're too soft, they just walk all over you. You have to be strong. You have to fight. Like, okay, that's like, I could understand that. There's a conversation to be had about that. But when you read the Bible, when you read the gospel, Jesus Christ, sorry, it's like I don't actually say his name often, and I'm like, I almost feel like I'm swearing saying it, because that's very often how like I tend to hear it when people say it. But no, just like the person, he could be that warrior, that passionate, like, not quite fire and brimstone, but be like, you hypocrites, like, why are you doing this? One of my favorite scenes is when he's like literally whipping people in the temple for turning the temple into like a place of trade rather than a place of worship. Like, that's great. But that, like, venom was something that was saved for the people he saw as hypocrites. It was the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the people who used the word of God not to teach, not to save, but to control. And those were the people he had no patience for. But for the sinners, people like me, like nothing but love, compassion, patience, and kindness. And that's what you see in Father Judd. This is someone who, as he says again, like pretty, like relatively early on in the film, like it's not a huge spoiler, he's like, yeah, like I was a fighter, as a boxer, and I killed a man in the arena. Like, I am a chief sinner. But I have been saved and redeemed and renewed through Christ and the gospel and his love. And it's not just like oh, I'm saved, now let me do whatever I want. It's I genuinely, from my core, want to share this gospel with other people, because I want them to have that peace that comes with it. I want for people who are hurt and confused to have something they can believe in that can let them keep going. And I think the best way, I'm going to say it in a legit way, and I'm going to say it a bit as a joke, but the best way that I can really get down to it is Judd sees the sinner, not the sin. Wicks sees the sin over the sinner. And as kind of a jokey way of saying it, because we're bringing it all back to Umineko, without love, it cannot be seen. And I'm like, yeah, this movie's kind of doing it for me. Because I'm just, like, on the one hand, like, reminding me of Umineko is always going to make me happy. But, like, really genuinely reminding me of Umineko thematically is really going to do it for me. But, like, seeing genuinely positive depictions of Christianity juxtaposed with not so positive. So you really do get both. I really liked. So when you have Mr. Benoit Blanc, like if I say his name, I'm gonna try to do it in that voice. Someone who is very much like, no, I believe in facts, truth, logic. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in this religion. Like, there's a scene, again, pretty early on, like when he first meets Judd, it's like, yeah, I can appreciate, like, this church. I can appreciate the grandeur, the reverence, the architecture. But what I see and what I feel is an institution of control and hate. And I think it's all bullshit. But the architecture was lovely. And when you like are exposed to someone like Wicks, you fully understand why Benoit Blanc feels the way he does. And like, I'm not, like, I believe the exact opposite of you, but I'm not going to fight you on that. But then you see, like, Judd, and this is like a little mildly spoilery because it is later into the film. But Judd is on the phone, like, with this person who is not a suspect. Like, this is just like a third party. And he's asking her, he's trying to get information because this is going to be like a really key element to the case. He's asking her for this information, and she's just going off on a tangent, like not answering his question at all. And I'm like, okay, as an attorney, I have been in this exact spot so many times where I am trying to ask a specific question and they are not answering it. And I'm like, I'm starting to get kind of annoyed, but I still want to be professional. I still want to be polite, but come on, like, why can we not get back here? And then she talks about something personal that is going on in her life. And she's like, well, if you're a priest, like, could you pray for me? And Judd goes from like, all right, we got to figure out what's going on. We got to figure out what's going on, like, in the case. We got to solve the case. Boom, 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 boom. And then goes into priest mode. But it's not like this, like, okay, got to go into the mode, Hail Mary, Father, blah, blah, blah. It's more just, he just becomes sincere and empathetic. It's like, okay, nothing else matters right now. I want to listen to you. I'm here for you. What do you need me to pray about? And it is a genuinely beautiful moment. And I love how sincere it is. Because there's a lot of jokes throughout the film. And there are definitely some moments where, like, a scene is, like, sincere, but then they'll, like, kind of throw a joke in there. And for the most part, I think they still work. Both, like, the humor and the sincerity. And, like, I love just how sincere this moment is. When I think of this trilogy, the scene that lives in my head rent-free is, it's the killer reveal from Glass Onion, and it's the line Mr. Benoit Blanc says when he names them. And, like, I won't spoil Glass Onion here, but you probably know what I'm talking about, because, like, it's so funny, and the way it, like, contextualizes this entire case and this person, like, it's perfect. The other scene is the ending of Knives Out. And I won't spoil just in case, but it's what's written on the mug, and just the, like, perfect, like, full stop to that movie. But this scene with Father Judd and Luis is also one that's going to stick with me. It's going to stick with me for a really long time. I sincerely, to use that word again, loved this film. And, like, I've barely talked about, like, what I think of the cast, aside from, like, they're really good. Like, I haven't really talked about the mystery. But there was just an element of this film that I found genuinely compelling. And for that alone, like, I can't help but recommend it. I think it's great. I just want to check if I have anything else to say before going full into spoiler and just like, okay, this is what happened. Because it's a lot, and I think it's awesome. Just let me see. Without love, it cannot be seen, because yes, I wrote that down. No, I think that's basically it. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Spoilers are now live. So when it comes to the reveal, I will say I was wrong because I really overcomplicated this. So number one, I 100% believed that there was going to be a tunnel between the crypt and the room, like that kind of side room in the church. They're like, okay, I think there's going to be, and I think I kind of have to say these two things together. It's like, I thought there was going to be that, and I thought there was another person that was involved that the film wasn't telling us about. Not in like a total bullshit kind of way, because I thought it was the doctor's wife. I genuinely thought, I was like, okay, so this is what's been going on. The doctor lost his wife because she ran away, she left him, and he's been depressed, despondent, blah, 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 and he's become a lot closer to Wicks, but his wife never left. Or like, two different ideas, like either the wife never left, and they've been hiding the fact that she's still there, so they can pull this off when the time comes. Then, when we find out that Wicks is, what's his name, Sai's father, I was like, you know, could it be that the doctor's wife is the mother? And either that's why she had to leave, and this gives the doctor motivation, or, you know, it's like this is an affair that happened and she had to get kicked out, but, you know, the doctor still loves his wife and forgave her, but had to hide her from Wicks, and like something's gonna happen there. But I think the doctor and his wife are a big part of this. And also from the beginning of the movie, like the second I meet Martha, and like she knows everything that's going on about everywhere, like she's the one that has all this backstory, I'm like, oh, okay. I immediately think you're going to be the killer. So when you get to the doctor's house, and there's this like big area in the basement, and it's like a whole thing, and I'm like, oh, this is almost looks like a little mini house. Yo, I called it. They are bringing back the wife, and this is totally what's gonna happen. And it's just not what happened at all. I was like, I felt so validated for like a second. Man, dang it. But it was totally the doctor, and it was Martha. So once Wicks like reveals that, yes, I am. So Martha confesses to Wicks where the jewel is, which makes him take the jewel. Actually, did he already have it at that point? No, he didn't. But he's like, okay, I'm going to open the crypt so I can exhume the jewel from my grandfather's corpse, because Grandpa ate it to hide it from my mom, the harlot whore. I'm going to take this and be rich as hell. Sai is my son. I acknowledge him as my son, and we're going to have a cool life together, and he's going to use me as a platform for like political power and stuff. And you know, if it gets me political power and a bunch of money, that's all I really want. And when he just like eviscerates every person in his posse, showing how little regard he has for any of them, because he doesn't see them as people. Notably except Martha. He had nothing bad to say about Martha, but everyone else. It was Martha who then looked at him and said, no, this is not a good man, and I thought he was. Like, no man is perfect. We all sin. But for him to just embrace his infidelity, like having a child out of wedlock, and for it to be this horrible boy, and to just embrace him like that, no, something's wrong. And then I realized, like, he's gonna take the jewel and have all this wealth, and it's just going to corrupt him. I can't let that happen. I gotta kill him. So her plan was to work with the doctor to do that, and they did, and they like sewed a thing onto his robe, and there was a remote, so they spiked his liquor that he kept hidden in the back room that it would knock him out, activated the thing sewn into the road to make it look like it stabbed him, and then when the doctors examining him, Martha's hysterical, so everyone looks over there, and then the doctor actually kills him. And then they swap the body with Martha. I don't know if she and Samson were married, but that was kind of the vibe I got, or at the very least, they're incredibly close on both sides. He's dressed as Wicks, so when they open the tomb, he can come out of the tomb, and they'll pretend a whole thing he rose on the third day, Wicks is God, and blah, 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 even though he's actually dead. Samson will take the jewel, and I can destroy the jewel because it is just a corrupting force. But the doctor, who wants his wife back and thinks if I'm successful, she'll come back, killed Samson to take the jewel, and had a meeting with Martha where he attempted to poison her, but Martha saw that coming, pulled the old switcheroo, he died, and she put his body in a tub, had it look like Wicks drowned him because she still had access to his body, and then used, I think that was hydrochloric acid, might have been a different acid, to completely dissolve the doctor's remains. So he's just a skeleton wearing a ring, and Wicks's arms, and that looked cool as hell. And afterwards, she ingested the same poison and committed suicide. And Benoit Blanc is able to solve the case, but does not out her. Because as Judd had said, I'm having my Damascus moment. Where this is more important and impactful for her to out herself in her final moments and have a willing confession before a priest than for me to have my checkmate. It is a moment where throughout the film he's I want to have my moment, I want to have my moment. It's not a game, but it's a game where he sees the sin and not the sinner. But here he sees the person. Without love it cannot be seen, but he's able to see it. And again, in a movie with a lot of jokes and all that, the confession scene still manages to feel sincere. And Martha, in her final moments, realizing the hell that Grace, which I believe was the name of Wicks's mom, had to endure, and can realize that poor girl. It is beautiful. It's great. I loved this movie. I can't recommend it enough. I hope people go see it. I hope it does well enough to get Knives Out 4. That's it. See you.